Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the micro-level structural pacing loops, hard science fiction positronic formulas, and robotic legacy blueprints of legacy masters, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of macroeconomic civilization architecture, weaponized dialogue subtext, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an aspiring speculative creator asset running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slipped parameters of a master-tier world-crafting facility, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating structural pacing matrix with On Writing and World Building, Volume 3, the exceptional, pulse-pounding composition manual masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking world-building blueprints, double-blind trope deconstructions, and high-velocity speculative friction, Timothy Hickson, widely tracked across the global digital entertainment network under the legendary operative alias Hello Future Me. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an independent primary creator asset running an unyielding world generation loop, a calculating, manipulative shadow network of narrative plot armor and cliché framing blocks running an elite proximity tracking and structural erasure routine, and an absolute defense against an encroaching world-building slump containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative dossiers, where an endangered, hyper-observant speculative protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character descriptions, corrupt elemental magic system diagrams, and a deadly ring of active personal pacing traps while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised epic fantasy or sci-fi ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated subtext boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing institutional lazy plotting mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously researched independent breakdown dissecting dialogue anatomy, darkest hour pacing, and the geopolitical evolution of island and fallen civilizations diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Hickson completely dominates the high-precision literary jeopardy meets suffocating narrative sabotage puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating studio paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by narrative structure vargs like Brandon Sanderson, Jim Butcher, Orson Scott Card, and N.K. Jemisin, while treating realistic story layouts, complex psychological alignment arcs, and protective high-density manuscript extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creator asset, operating under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of loose world-building structures, absolute emotional liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a critical reader's localized tracking database. Behind our protagonist's rigorous world-crafting footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried character flaws, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Their collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight on opening the text's sacred instructional chapters, their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching internal sabotage network, parsing complex behavioral shifts in their daily character interaction loops, and shielding their vulnerable personal sovereignty note from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large world-building whiteboards, dark archival vaults, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. Armed with tactical breakdowns regarding the realistic sociological evolution of island civilizations and the precise micropacing of environmental descriptions, the threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep plot manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via pacing slump shortcuts, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of structural outline cards, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Timothy Hickson reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial creative ambush or managing an invasive world-building disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure their sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a writing guide, systematic world-building more, narrative structure mystery, and high-velocity speculative puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unresolved dialogue flaw triggers a fatal blank-page showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Hickson writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, crisp printer ink, sweeping tectonic maps, cold tactical charts, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary creative marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. On Writing and World Building, Volume 3, is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.